Hey, hi all. Welcome back to VR Knowledge Center. So in this today's section, we'll talk about Microsoft Graph API and how we are going to fetch the Azure AD using Microsoft Graph API. So Microsoft Graph API was one of the services provided by Microsoft Azure, where you can connect to Microsoft Azure Active Directory and can get the users information and applications and other part of components and services as part of Active Directory. So let's quickly get into this demonstration bit, how to use Microsoft Graph API and how to get this Active Directory user stuff. So if you look at here, I have under default directory 33 Active Directory, and this is what my tenant, and this is what my primary domain. And I have two users. One is a kind of relevant tenant ID, and this is another external tenant ID. So now, how you are going to register Microsoft Graph API into your application, and then how you are consuming Azure Active Directory details of, especially for now users, and then we'll look at other aspects in the later sessions. So for this, I'm just creating a console application. I'm just using Visual Studio 2022 and creating a console application here. Then create new project and click on console and click on next and giving Microsoft Graph uses Microsoft Graph AD or Microsoft Graph uh, listing users. Click on create, and I'm using usually in .NET 6. This is the long-term support version. Click on create. It is going to create my console application here, and this is what default it is opening. And when you look at startup, this is what the stuff it is having right now. So, and when you read by T. So when you run this application, it is just displaying the hello world. But right now, I just wanted to consume or call Microsoft API, Graph API in this console application, and then I wanted to read user details of my specified tenant or Active Directory. Go back to your Azure here and go to apps, app registration, and new app registration. Let us say Microsoft Graph API demo, and then select this and click on register so that it will register the Microsoft Graph API under this tenant. Now you notice that application client ID this one, and this is tenant ID, and this is what the display name. So now we are accessing the API, and we need to look at the API permissions here. By default, it won't give you any permissions to access Microsoft Graph API. So clicking on view API permissions, and if you look at here, I have only Microsoft Graph already having user.read, and I'm going to add another permissions here, and the Microsoft API permissions. I'm just clicking on Microsoft Graph API and application permissions, and here I'll go for giving another options like directory and directory to read all directory data, and then other was group. Let me quickly check this. I think group also required. Read all groups, and last but not least was user. Go to the users, and here I'm going to read all users and say add permission so that it will add all you selected permissions in this list. Directory read all, group read all, user read all, right? Right now, by default, grant permission. So no permission was granted for these, no kind of permissions for these API endpoints. So just click on grant permission and click on yes, so that it will granted all these options. Okay, and going back to overview, and you'll see all this stuff. And to connect to the API from your console application, so I'm just copying the some of this stuff which already been given in the Microsoft sites. This is the stuff, and this is what your initial line of statement, and this stuff we have to get through, the sample code. So where you need to specify all the required stuff, and we need to give a reference of Azure Identity and Microsoft Graph API. So we need to install this stuff, and dependencies, go to NuGet packages and browse for this, and I'll go for stable one, installing this, and accept. Okay, and another one was Graph API. And search for Microsoft Graph, and you install this, and I'll select the stable version here and installing the same. So this is also be added to my project, and accept, and so I'll clear all the errors here. I'm going back to my program.cs. Now you'll see this is what the scopes URL we need to mention it here, and this is the tenant ID and client ID and client secret, three parameters we need to mention here. And this is what the options I'm going to create as a public cloud, and all this stuff I'm passing it to this particular client credentials object, tenant ID, client ID, client secret, and options. Now in the graph client, I'm passing this stuff, and with this I'm getting the users here, await graph client dot users request getting, and from the users I'm just displaying user display name and user given name. So, and after that, console dot read line, and this is the stuff I'm giving. So to get this tenant ID and client ID, go back to your portal, and this is the tenant ID and this is the client ID, just copying client ID. So I'm just copying client ID, and for the tenant ID you need to copy this tenant ID, and I'm pasting tenant ID, and we need to get the secret code here. So how you'll get the client secret? So if you look at here, certificates and secrets, so we need to create a secret for your application. I'm just creating a new client secret, and I'll enter some graph secret, and I'll give recommended for 6 months. I'm just clicking on add. It will add the graph secret, and this is what the value it is giving, and this is what the secret ID. I'm just copying the secret ID, and I'm specifying client secret here. And now when I start running this my console application, it will connect to my Microsoft Graph API using this particular tenant ID and client ID and client secret. Oops, code generation was a problem. Let me client ID and client secret. Let me see the client secret here. The client secret ID, I think we have to copy this. I think we have copied wrong value. Stop this, and client secret ID you need to paste it. And now let's try once and open this Microsoft Graph API console application. Now let's run this. Yeah, you see here BRR Ramna and Ramna Reddy Boompaldi. These are the user details I got it from Microsoft Graph API. These are the users. So we have it in this particular Azure Active Directory. If you look at the users, so we have two users, right? So those two users, I was displaying it here, right? So this is how it is connecting to my Azure Active Directory and then reading all users information. Let's try to add one more user. This time I'm adding external user, or you create a user saying uh, test user 3387, and you'll give a test user 3387 and just create this stuff. Now refresh this and you will see, so that user is going to be added to your current Active Directory or the tenant. Yep, this test user is added. Now go back to your application. Let's try again. So it should get the user stuff here as a new user is added to this, right? This is the test user I added. These are the users already existed. This is how it is connecting to Microsoft Graph API and getting all the user details from the Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So I hope you understand like how to configure Microsoft Graph API into your application and then get the all the user details from the Azure Active Directory. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.